Hello and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers, and I'm your host, Dorothea Adele, for this evening. I have the distinct pleasure of bringing Michael Parker to the show. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Michael, my fellow Marine here, my fellow veteran, love to have you on here. This guy has such an amazing story and one that I know is inspirational to a lot of people. So, Michael, for those of you that have no idea who you are, please share a little bit about your story and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I grew up in a military family. My dad retired from the Army after 30 years recently. As a young kid, I decided I wanted to be a Marine. For those of you wondering how that works, how an Army dad let his son join the Marine Corps, he started out in the Marines, so it was perfectly okay. But yeah, graduated high school, joined the Marine Corps. What I didn't realize then is I had some underlying childhood trauma. In ways, it kind of helped me. In other ways, it was detrimental. It pushed me to be my very best because I had this sense of needing to prove myself and get that approval of others. At the same point, it was detrimental for the same reason. Ended up falling into drinking real heavy. Leaned on sex and alcohol to kind of cope with that emptiness I had inside. And needless to say, that's a recipe for disaster. Ended up finding myself in a spot where I found myself in trouble. Ended up getting discharged from the Marine Corps. It's kind of rough when you spent your whole life looking forward to being a Marine, and that's what you plan to do for the 20 years, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. Didn't really have any plans. Didn't really know who I was outside of being a Marine. Had a bad taste in my mouth, so I didn't want to associate with anything that had to do with the military. Also, because of my trauma, I didn't trust anybody around me. I didn't even trust my own family. I didn't want anything to do with anyone. So began to isolate, started exhibiting signs of post-traumatic stress, and I just was like in that denial stage and just denied it, suppressed it until one day it just kind of all blew up. Ended up stabbing myself a couple times in the chest out of rage. That was my first suicide attempt. That's when I was diagnosed, and I kind of had to face that there was no hiding from it anymore. The next about 10 months was really, really rough. Of course, their response is go to counseling, take these medication. I don't even remember how many different medications I was on, how many different combinations they tried to find something that worked. We were on some that they said was working, but I didn't like it. I didn't feel like I was in control of my own life. It was like I was watching from the outside, and it was rough. In that time, I ended up having 3 more suicide attempts, 2 that nobody knew about until much later. And then the last one, which unfortunately, my grandparents noticed I was acting strange. And so they decided to follow me out there and witnessed me try to kill myself. Needless to say, they called the cops because they didn't know what else to do. Well, 911, cops showed up. I'm heavily intoxicated because that's what I had to do to suppress that little tiny voice up there that was saying, keep fighting. And I knew that voice was right, but I'm like, I'm so freaking tired of being in this place and struggling. I'm like, yes, I can keep fighting, but I don't want to anymore. And to me, that seemed like the most logical reason, the most logical action. And I think that's important to note, is like, it was never I wanted to die. I just didn't feel anything. I, like, emotional wise, I didn't feel anything. And I felt like I was a burden on those around me. I felt like it was never going to end. And it was just a very dark place. And it's not a fun place to be in. So I did say, fortunately, they came out, because, that was kind of that turning point. Even though I did end up in jail for 60 days after that, because I got into it with the cops that showed up. Not my most, not my brightest moment. But after that, I realized, hey, we got to do something different, and moved out to Hawaii, as far away as I could. I also kind of felt like being back in my hometown was around my family was, excuse me, it was hard, because they knew me as a kid, what I was as a kid, and they couldn't wrap their head around the fact that I was different. And I felt like it was holding me back. And so the best thing for me to do was to go somewhere else, start all over, and become who I wanted to become. And yeah, so that was kind of that turning point. Still not the end of the struggle. Quit taking medication after I got to Hawaii. Started working on a ranch. Started hiking and kayaking, getting outdoors a lot. And I noticed that I started to feel better when I was doing those things. So I started doing them more. And it carried over from just making me feel better while I was doing them to making me feel better most of the time. And especially when I started working with horses, it really helped me with the emotions, because I have short fuse. You even look at me wrong and I'm going to blow up. And so I had to learn to keep my emotions in check, and get that deep understanding and awareness of my emotions. And yeah, that was kind of that turning point for me. That's when, in that time, that was when the idea that I wanted to help others, by getting them out into nature, was born. Didn't do anything about it for 2 years. When people asked me what my plans for the future were, I would say, yeah, my 5-year plans to start a ranch and help people, to help veterans. And then 2019 came along. Lost my job at the ranch I was working at. I was also living on that ranch. So just like that, I'm homeless and unemployed, sleeping on a hammock on the beach.
Adds to the anxiety that you already have, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was definitely stressful. But it was, I needed to get uncomfortable in order to make those decisions, because it was in that time of being homeless, being unemployed, searching for jobs, being told that I was either overqualified or not getting called back for jobs that I knew I was well qualified to do. Mm-hmm. That was the most frustrating part. I was like, I don't care if I'm overqualified for this. I just need a job. I'm homeless. Like, right. I need something. I need to eat. But that's kind of when things began to shift. I was connected with a life coach. Had no idea what a life coach really did. I was like, hey, this guy might be able to help me get a job. Right. He did more than that for me. He asked me a simple question. He said, where do you want to be in 5 years? If you could be anywhere, where would you be? And that's when I was like, well, this ranch. And he kind of set me down that path towards that. And so started laying the foundation, started to get rolling along. And then we know what happened in 2020. COVID hit, kind of threw a rel on that. Had to leave Hawaii, come back to Arkansas. again. Now I don't have a job again, but I look for opportunity. I realize, hey, everybody else is in the same boat that I am. Everybody's sitting at home, not able to do anything.
Mhm.
So I just started connecting with people and really use that as a time to learn about running a business, learn about everything from mental health to understanding how I work, how other people work, just really trying to get to this step and to this deeper place and understanding like this deep self understanding, and really use that as a time of healing too. Most people are like, oh, COVID changed my routines. I was out riding horses every day. You'd catch me riding up and down the highway every day. It didn't change my life a whole much, except I had to relocate. But I was
Right.
still out there living my best life.
Well, and that's what it's all about, right? Living your best life, and that's different for everybody. I just want to go over to the comments for one quick second. Our friends over at Angels 14, Jeff said, "A cowboy is in the house." Melody from Massachusetts, welcome, Melody. Thanks for joining us. And that's right, Michael is unstoppable.
Thanks, Jeff. Love you, Jeff. Love you, Melody. Thanks for
Yes.
tuning in. Good to see you guys here.
So, what would you say to your fellow veteran, your fellow Marine that is struggling, that is out there, like shit's piling on top? It's I call it a shit stack sandwich. So shit's piling on top of them, and they have no idea which way to turn. Right? What would your advice be for your fellow veteran, fellow comrade, when they're struggling and they're at those low moments where they thought like taking their life would probably have been the answer?
Yeah. The best thing I could say is keep going. As somebody that's been there and thought that, suicide was the best option. Like I recently shared on my LinkedIn, like I just celebrated 7 years since my last attempt. And, when I reflect back, it's not been smooth sailing, but I am so glad that I'm still here. I'm so glad that none of those attempts were successful, because I would have missed out on so much. Even the bad stuff, and I use air quotes there because what I realize is, sometimes what we see as bad in the moment plays out for our best later on, and you can't really. So I would really wish I knew who told me this, but somebody told me this a few years ago, and it just stuck with me, and it's so true. They told me you can't connect the dots looking forward, only looking back. So, when you're going through stuff, it doesn't always make sense why you're going through what you're going through. But
Yeah.
when you get down the road a little ways and you look back, you can say, oh, all of that led me to where I am now. And, if you were to ask me if there was anything I would go back and change, there's things I'm not proud of, but I wouldn't change any of it because I know if I changed any of it, I wouldn't learn the lessons that I learned and I wouldn't be where I am today and who I am today. So yeah, I guess the biggest thing would be just keep going, but don't do it alone. That was something I learned is you can't do it on your own. You need a tribe. You need people around you, like our Angels 14 group, Jeff, Melody, all of those guys over there. You got to have those people that feed into you and lift you up. And that was something that I learned is, when at first it was, well, I guess when I was in the darkness, I had a few Marines that I didn't even know that were there and kept me from probably making other suicide attempts. And they just were there for me and took care of me. And then I ended up getting into a church that was very supporting and loving, and they just really helped me to grow and see who I was as a person. And just continuing to find those people that grow you and elevate you, and finding that circle, removing people that aren't benefiting you and not benefiting you, not helping you grow. I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying not like you're using people, but you know what I'm saying there, like
Yeah.
that aren't there to support and grow you.
Well, exactly. And I call it my tribe. As a woman, I have a couple tribes, meaning a inner circle that I know that I could count on them, right? And I'm blessed to have a couple of them. I didn't have very many friends growing up, but later in life, I certainly have a couple of them. And so those people that you could count on no matter what, like you could share your innermost secret and they're not gonna, judge you or things like that. And I think it's important. And that's why I'm thankful to have Angels 14, because it's like, and other groups like that, and Carrie Stewart's group, just it's like a community within a community, and we all lift each other up, and that's what it's there for. So by having your tribe and having those people that you can count on, I think is very important.
Yeah. So plug there for Angels 14. If you are a veteran, first responder, and you feel alone, you feel like you're struggling, you're missing that camaraderie, like reach out to Jeff Knight. He's in the comments. I see him over there. Reach out to him, find out about getting into Angels 14. It's a great group. Just designed to lift each other up. Sarah Carell's The Power of Our Story is another good one, another great one. I've been a part of those two communities for over 3 years now, and just the love and support and growth that I've gotten out of those groups is amazing. So if you're looking for a tribe, check those out.
Absolutely. Melody says she's so glad that you're here. So am I.
Me too.
And John says exactly that you can't do this journey alone. And thank you to Kenny D, the amazing, delectable guy over in Texas, joining us. So thank you, Kenny. And yes, I did say shit sandwich earlier. Usually the show airs at 7, but we are doing it an hour early because we are doing a very important event for Michael and Second Chance Ranch. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that. So you alluded it a little bit to it earlier. What made you decide to start your own ranch and reach out to other veterans?
Yeah, like I mentioned, a lot of us get out, and I was one of those, and you don't know who you are outside the uniform. You feel like you've lost your purpose. And this is something that took me a long time to realize, is I never lost my purpose. I just didn't really know what my purpose was. But deep down inside, I still had this yearning to serve. And so, of course, I looked into like trying to go back into the military, joining the Army. That just kind of didn't pan out. I, thought about going to school, becoming an EMT or a firefighter. But just kind of, my mind was like, you've got all this trauma already. You sure you want to add more trauma to that? And so I just kind of never pursued that. But I was like, I need to serve. Like there was this deep yearning inside of me to serve. And so I was just continuing to look for ways to serve. And then, I call it that light bulb moment when I was like, well, these things helped me heal. Maybe they'll help others. And then I realized immediately, like that was my way of serving and giving back and helping others. And I think that kind of also too stemmed from, back in, can't remember, 2017, 2018, lost a friend to suicide, another veteran, and really gets to me, right? And so I spoke out on it, and first time I shared any of that stuff publicly, and I spoke out about my struggle with suicide. And my goal was that anybody that was listening to it, because we've all been that well, if you've been in that place, we've all had that person that's like, oh, you'll be okay, you'll make it through it. And I'll be like, have you been here? And they'd be like, no. So unless you've been in that place, like, don't tell me that it's gonna be okay, because you don't understand. So I was like, listen, I want you to know that I've been there and I understand. And so, I share my story, just to to have that credibility, I guess, with the people I'm trying to reach, and to encourage them to reach out, get help, not be alone. But I found it didn't just impact people that were struggling. I found that there was others out there that had lost people to suicide, and they're reaching out to me saying, "Oh my goodness, like I never understood why my fill in the blank did that, but when you said that, I can now understand." And I was able to help some of them heal because they had this anger or resentment or whatever emotion around somebody that they cared about taking their own life. And so I was able to help heal, and I was like, well, maybe I need to share my story a little more. Maybe there are people out there that can help and learn from this. And ironically, I don't like sharing my story. I know I do it a lot, and people will probably think I'm good at it, but I don't like putting it out there. But I have a voice, and I've got to use it. And so, yeah.
That's funny because I was just thinking, I'm like, I know, and I was just going to share, I know behind the scenes, you and I have had a conversation where you said, Dorothy, I don't like sharing my story, but I said, what happens if it impacts one person? And we've had that conversation because as I'm not a veteran, I am a veteran ally. I have had family members that serve and family members that are currently serving. So I don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. And getting back to 1 second from what you said before, no matter even if you've had the thought of completing suicide, you have no idea what's your struggle is. Like everybody's struggle is different. Everybody's journey is different. So we can empathize with people, but we never know what you're
Right.
going through at any point. And even, and even if we had tried to complete suicide, and I don't like it when people do that because you never know what somebody else is going through. So I'm just going to say that on that. And coming back to, by you sharing your story with me, I was able to open up a little bit about my great grandfather and about an uncle that had served that are now deceased and gone. And both men had did some things that I didn't approve of. And I felt it very hard to even understand them because of some of what had happened. But after you and I talked, you gave me a different perspective on everything. And keep in mind, I have been working with veterans for almost 2 years now. And so I hear your stories and I hear everything like that. But when you and I talked last week, I think it was, you gave me a different perspective of like, and I know they all suffered from PTSD. And, who am I to judge? I don't know what they went through before they served or what happened during the time that they did serve. Because my great grandfather served back in 1948. So, and my other uncle was Vietnam. So that was a long time ago, right? So I have no idea what was going through their lives. And based on third-hand information coming down from the family pipeline, and how that family pipeline can be in some families. In mine, it starts as one small thing and ends to something huge.
I think that's probably most families.
Right. And so you gave me a different perspective the other day on, well, wait a minute, how can I have empathy for you and other veterans, but I can't have empathy for my own damn family. So you really gave me an eye-opening the other day. So just by sharing your story, you have changed how I view certain things in certain areas of my family. So thank you for that. And that's one person that you helped by sharing your story. Not to mention, I know you've been on Sarah Carell's show and the amount of people that you've helped on there and the amount of people that are hearing your story tonight thinking, oh, wait a minute, if he didn't give up, then I can't give up, right? Because I don't know about you, but we're all just people and we're out here just trying to do the best that we can. So now I'm just going to go to the quick comments before, yes, the power of our story with Sarah Carell. Find a tribe and love it hard. Absolutely. Yep. Dr. Burke. I'm not sure what he knew the feeling. Probably when you were sharing a little bit about your story. Yeah. Melody says the light you found in your experiences that create your story is a beacon of light for helping others find the path to healing too. I'm grateful for you for that. And have been on that path is a painful one. Absolutely. And second chance rehabilitation rates. Okay, so now let's get back into what we're here for tonight. Tell us so what happens when they come to one of your ranches?
Yeah, so clarify that. We don't actually have a ranch yet. Still working on that. As I mentioned, COVID kind of came along and derailed a lot of things. So still working on trying to get some land so we can actually have a ranch. But what I found early on is I ended up creating a LinkedIn account for myself and for the ranch, because kind of my thought process was, well, hey, like, let's get this out there while we're getting it up and going so people can follow along, and that way once it's up and going, we didn't just come out of nowhere. But what I found is almost immediately people started reaching out wanting help, and the first couple people I was like, I don't have a ranch, I can't do anything for you. And that really messed with me, because I felt like I was just being one of those people that was talking about doing something and not doing anything. And I don't like those people. I don't want to be one of those people. And so when the next person reached out, I was like, there's got to be something. And like I mentioned, the plan was to start a ranch, but kind of the follow-on plan was to do retreats, to get them out and expose them to different holistic healing modalities. So it was at that point I was like, well, I have a couple horses, so we can do the horseback riding. And I started piecing it together, and I was like, well, why don't we just do the retreats now? I don't need to have my own land to do these retreats. I can do this without the land, so let's do that. So that's when I kind of put together those retreats. And so, yeah, if somebody comes out, joins us on one of these retreats, we talk about some of the topics I talked about today, identity, figuring out who you are. Because so often when we have that uniform on, that becomes our identity. We either lose or we never figure out who we are as an individual. So we dive into that, help guys start figuring out, if not completely figuring out, what their identity is. And then we also go over the difference between a mission, purpose, and core values, which is something important, because again, you always hear, I lost my purpose when I left the military, or I feel like I have no purpose. You have a purpose. The military was never your purpose. It was a mission that fueled your purpose. And so when you getting guys to understand that and helping them try to figure out what their purpose is. So that's some of the educational pieces that we do. And then just doing different recreational activities, all of which that have healing nature to them. So like horseback riding, kayaking, fishing, hiking. We also do some meditation. Meditation isn't always what you think. It can be as simple as just sitting alone with yourself out in nature and just being still. And it's funny because I was like, ew, meditation. And then I realized recently, I was like, bro, you've been meditating for years now. Like literally every time you go out there and just sit alone in nature and do that, that is a form of meditation, not medication. Wrong word. Meditation.
Well, wait a minute. But meditation could be your medication.
It's
a holistic
It's a
form.
natural medication.
Right. A holistic form.
But yeah, and then, you got the camaraderie piece. You're getting guys back together. That's another common thing that you hear veterans and first responders say is, I miss the camaraderie. I miss my brothers and sisters. So you get them together, they get that camaraderie, they get these tools to add to their tool belt. That's what I like to call it. And just equipping them with what they need to be successful going forward. Because kind of my philosophy is, we're not broken. We're not damaged goods. We're just misguided. We need a little bit of guidance and direction. And so that's what I do. Is I get them pointed in the right direction, help them get the tools that they need to be successful going forward, and point them in that direction. And then, just check up on them and encouraging that community building, right? Because like we said, don't do it alone. So building that community so that as they go forward out there, they can support each other. And so,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to start early. I know the official fundraiser has not started officially, but I'm getting a head start, guys. So as we're talking tonight about Michael's secondhand ranch, and yes, eventually he wants to get the land for this, but to me, it doesn't matter. Like you're doing these retreats, as you call them, on a ranch somewhere or close to, like in nature, right? Whether that be camping or actually on a ranch. So if you could find it in your heart to make a donation to Secondhand Ranch, there is this is the donation link. So please feel free to make a donation. We will still honor when you come back in the next hour. We'll be starting the fundraiser, and we will still honor it. And Michael can say yes or no, but I'm sure he'll say yes. For anybody who makes $100 donation, he is going to give. He made some amazing leather crosses. Show it, Michael. So anybody who makes $100 donation tonight will be getting your name put into a draw for one of these beautiful, amazing crosses.
well, I have 20 of them. So
yes.
The first 20 people that make $100 donation. And also I want to throw this out there just in case. We are not a nonprofit. So as far as like the tax deduction standpoint, I just want to make that clear to people. We don't have the tax exempt status.
And the whole reason why we're doing this tonight, though, well, first of all, I wanted to bring Michael on and hear a story because I think it's powerful and it needs to be heard. But the second part is we are trying to raise $26,000 for Michael to bring some veterans out to Hollister, California, September 28th to the 1st.
Well, I think we're actually going to be pushing it back to November. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's in November. There we go. So,
I mean, unless we can miraculously raise $26,000 tonight, it'll probably end up getting pushed back to November. But yeah, that is the goal, is the end of this month.
The end of this. Okay. So we're just going to put it there. We're going to trust God, because I know you talked about him earlier, where you met him on one of your retreats. And I do believe I am spiritual. And so therefore I believe that anything's possible when two or more come together, and we're both in agreement. So I think we're both in agreement that we're going to raise it tonight.
I like your thinking.
Oh man. Okay. So yes, so to go ahead and donate, it is in the comments or on the ticker there that's going through. So I just wanted to put that out there because people, I want to get a head start, because that's how I am. I always start strong. Actually, Michael had a donation come in yesterday. I think it was yesterday, sometime on the weekend anyways, $1,000 anonymous donation. So that it was heartwarming to hear that. So kudos to thank you to whoever donated that money. It's much appreciated, and it's going to help a lot of veterans get the second chance they need. So I have to say, so why did you name it Second Chance?
That's a good question. So as I mentioned, it was this idea is that I knew what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I was going to call it. And I think I was probably at least a month into like getting stuff, nailed down. I even had like the mission, the vision, all of that. And, the person I'm working with is like, have you figured out a name yet? And I was like, I have no idea what I want to call this. And I just happened to be on the phone with another veteran, and he was asking me about it, kind of grilling me, trying to see what my motivations were behind it, and fill me out and whatnot. And he's like, so why do you want to do this? Like, why is this so important to you? And I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something along the effects of, like, my life has been nothing but a whole bunch of second chances. And if it wasn't for those second chances, I wouldn't be where I am today. And it just kind of clicked. I was like, oh, second chance. So that's kind of how we came up with the name. And it's true. It's every day is a second chance. That's something I say all the time is every day's a second chance. If you woke up this morning, you have a chance to be better than you were yesterday, and we always have this idea that we need to go out and make big changes, but it's as simple as doing just little things, right? Like, we might not make big mistakes every day, but I guarantee you there's something that you did today that you wish you didn't, or something you didn't do that you wish you had. And it's as simple as just making one decision differently each day, and just trying to be 1% better. And if you're 1% better today than you were yesterday, and tomorrow you're 1% better than you were today, over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you're going to be a different person. A year from now, you're not even going to recognize the person sitting here listening to me talk.
Right.
So it's just those little steps and constantly pushing yourself to be a better version of yourself.
I love that you said that. 1%. Who cares about the person next to you, or your best friend, or, your buddy from college, or your buddy that was in boot camp? As long as you are 1% better than you were yesterday, meaning just you've got to beat. And that's funny because I have heard the saying, but it's been a while. And so within the last 2 weeks, you're the second one to say that, because I started a 75 hard group, and they said, just be 1% better than you were the day before. And that really got to me, because I think, I don't know about you, but I'd like to grab a goal, go gun hunting at it. But then sometimes that goal can be so big that then sometimes you're like, not scared, but like, how am I going to do this? Like, the goal is so huge. How are we going to do this? Right. But if you are 1% each day, that adds up, right, over the course of time. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, technically, like, if you're 1% better each day, 3 months, that's 90%. You're almost in a whole different place over 3 months than where you are now. 6 months, completely different person. And then when you look back at yourself a year from now, you're gonna be like, wow, I barely remember that guy, right? And it's true, because I've been there. I didn't like who I was, and kind of one of those realizations that I had is, we were talking about the spiritual. I'm sure most of us have heard, love your neighbor as yourself, and kind of what hit me was, how can I love other people as myself if I don't love myself? And that I realized, I was like, I don't know the last time I sat down or I stood in front of a mirror and liked the person looking back at me. Mm-hmm. And I realized that in order to actually love other people, I needed to love the person looking back at me. And so I sat down and I was like, well, these are what I don't like about myself. This is what I want to be. And then just slowly started working towards being that person that I wanted to be. And of course, when you surround yourself with people that bring that out of you and show you that good, you're able to just keep pushing little by little by little. And, some people are going to say, yeah, right, that guy, he ain't going to change. He's trash. There was a lot of people that did that. Guess what? I just removed them from my life and kept pushing. But I'm the kind, I don't know if it's petty or not, but I'm the kind, I won't block you. I just remove you, and I'll let you watch from a distance, because I'll let you watch me get to where I'm going. But you just don't have close access to me anymore.
Right. It's funny you said that, because I personally have had to put boundaries up around even some family members to get to where I'm at today. I am not the same person I was yesterday, and sure as hell not the same person I was 2 years ago. And some people want to remind me of who I was 2 years ago, and I'm like, dude, I'm not even that person, like, not even remotely that person. So if you want, you can sit there in judgment, but like, I'm not even close to that person. So you're right. I've had to even family members just put a smile, nod, and
unfortunately,
I'll see you in 6 months.
Unfortunately, those are the ones that I can't tell you how many family members I have completely cut off or given very limited access to me, because whether they mean to or not, sometimes they are the most detrimental people to your growth. And sometimes it's because, especially if you're trying to start your own business or something like that, you know, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you need to just go get a job. You need to play it safe. They want you to play it safe because they want to protect you, but they're not you. They don't know what your purpose is, right? They don't know what that desire you have is. And so they think they're trying to protect you, but they're really doing you harm. Or you just have the ones that are just toxic. But you know what? Most of my family's not blood. and that's okay, you know. But honestly, it's hard for us sometimes because we're like, oh well, that's my grandma, like, or that's my uncle or my aunt or my sister or my brother, you know. If they're toxic for you, cut them off. Or, man, I've been friends with this person for all these years. If they're not helping you grow, if they're trying to pull you in a different direction than where you're trying to go, they're not good for you. Cut your ties. Doesn't mean you can't still be cordial, but take away their access. Because as long as you allow those people to stay close, you're gonna continue to be pulled back towards where you're trying to get away from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Melanie has something here she wants to say. When they watch from a distance, you may end up leading them too because you planted a seed. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
for instance, my dad used to be the most negative person on the planet. It came to a point I used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, take him once a month, take him an hour drive to a hospital, get pain management treatments, and drive him back. The man, but 15, and that's an hour in the car each way. One day, he was over the top negative, and I pulled the car over, and I said, looked at my dad, and I said, I love you with everything in me, but if you don't say something positive in the next 5 seconds, you're walking the rest of the way to the hospital. And it was a half an hour drive from where I pulled over, and it would have took him an hour and a half if he could have even wobbled that far. And he just looked at me, and I said, seriously, Dad, I can't take this anymore. Like, I cannot handle the negativity. And he says, okay, you're right. Said something positive, and I pulled back onto the road, and away we went. And, I don't even regret that. I mean, he's not here any longer. He passed away 2 years ago, but I don't regret doing that because from that moment on, it's like there was something inside of him that turned, and I planted that seed, like Melody said, and he was starting to look more at the positive side of things and not seeing everything through a negative lens. And we have to be that person for our family members because if not us, then who?
Yeah. And another thing on that too is, that I was kind of thinking about what you thought about when you said you were talking about that is be careful who you celebrate and share your successes with too. Because not everybody's going to be happy for you. Even some of those people that are close to you, like your family. Like when it comes to business successes and wins, my family doesn't get told that stuff. Why? Because they don't care, or they don't celebrate it with me, like, or they don't realize how monumental some of that stuff is. So guess what? I've got to select people. I'm like, yo, guess what we did? We did this, and guess what? They're gonna be like, heck yeah, good job, Michael. Keep going, And they're gonna be those ones. So even be careful with that, right? Like I know you want to, I'm like, oh, I want to go tell like my mom or whatever. My mom's actually pretty supportive, but I really hope she's not listening to this because she's gonna be mad if I say this. She's not the first person to find out about most of like my successes, right? Because I'm like, these people are the ones that I'm telling first, and it's because they're the ones that I'm sitting there, venting to when I'm struggling, and they're the ones encouraging me through it, and also they're the ones celebrating those with me. So,
well, and you're absolutely right in that because okay, so when I wrote my book, I didn't tell my family until it was written. And then my publisher was just like, well, did you get permission from your family to tell some of the stories? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? She goes, well, you have to get permission because if you don't, your family can actually sue you. And I'm like, seriously? And I'm like, not that my family ever would, but I'm like, okay, I guess I confess what I put in the book, right? And so I asked my parents, I sat them down, I'm like, hey, this is what I did. This is what I talked about. You know, a lot of it was their health struggles because growing up, it was a health nightmare in my house, and you know, I don't even think they realize just what it toll it takes on the kids, right? Seeing their parents chronically ill, and so my mom's just they both gave me permission. But then after I didn't realize it, but after my mom read the book, she was fat happy. And it wasn't until the week my dad died that I even knew she was mad at me. So 2 years later, and so the a family member had read it, and she goes, "Do you not realize that that entire book is a labor of love to your entire family?" And my mom didn't see it that way. So thank God that an outsider read it and shared that information with my mom, because then my mom had a fresh perspective, and instead of just, you know, the perspective that she had. And it's like I had no way tore any of my family members down. It was all about like a labor of love giving to them. So perception is everything, and you're right, definitely. Sharing your successes and your wins is with certain people. John says, once I got comfortable with my good, bad, and ugly, I was able to heal. I built my tribe with like minded people who strive to do the same. Absolutely, John.
Only
100%.
because I love John like entirely. John, you got more ugly than good and bad, but I love you, brother. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's. If I didn't say something mean, he would be offended.
Yeah.
John is one of my inner circle, and I absolutely love that guy. But yeah, you know, it's true. You got to get comfortable with the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And that's probably like one of the hardest things to do is being able to like I said, look yourself in the mirror and actually like who you are. And I think a lot of us have problems with that. That's why I think we spend so much time. Thanks. I'm glad. See, I told you you'd be all right with it.
See, yeah, he did say, "I love you, brother." So that's good.
I'll hear about that later when he calls me. But yeah, you know, it's being able to be comfortable with who you see in the mirror, and I think that's why a lot of us we go 90 miles an hour, right? Or we're always on like social media and stuff. Is we're looking at externally because we don't want to look at ourselves, right? We don't like who we are, and we don't want to put in the work because it does take a lot of work. And no matter how good you get, like, you know, I say that I'm happy with myself. There's still things I don't like about myself, but that's okay. I'm human. I'm gonna have shortcomings. I'm going to make mistakes, but overall, I love myself.
Yeah.
Not in a conceited way, but
No, and I totally get that, you know, and some people see it as conceit, but sometimes they have no idea what it takes us to get to that point. Because when I finally healed from my inner shit and started saying nice things about myself, there's always somebody there to try and knock you down. And that was not, you know, which is bullshit. And so I looked at the person and I said, "Do you realize that it took me 2 years to get to this point in my life where I can actually say I love the person in the mirror?" And because I said something positive, you thought I was over humbled and you had to say something. And, you know, they just look at you. People have no idea what you're going through. So just be kind no matter what.
yeah. I remember the first time, like, I did a video on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn, on Facebook. Now I spend all my time on LinkedIn. That's why I said LinkedIn. But I did a video on Facebook, and but I was telling my buddy about what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about self-love. Like I said, like, you got to love your neighbors as yourself. You got to love yourself first. And he was like, "Oh, you're not going to do that. That's self-love bull crap." And I was like, "Bro, you know." And I guess people are like, "Oh, self-love." We think of those people that are like, "Oh, look at me," you know. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm like, but if you can't love and respect yourself, you can't love and respect others.
Absolutely. And John says, exactly. It takes time to heal. His journey was 10 years. Well, from my abusive relationship to my marriage was 10 years. I took that healing time in between. So don't feel like you're behind, John. You're right on time.
I mean, heck, it's been 7 years since my last suicide attempt, about 8 years, and I'm still healing. And that's the thing, is like, I don't have all my stuff together. Let me make that clear. I do not have it all together. I'm always progressing and trying to learn more. And I don't think we ever have it all together. Anybody that tells you that, they probably need to do a deeper evaluation of themselves, or give us the secret recipe. But there's always something to learn and grow from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm checking to see if this is actually going live on your LinkedIn as well. And I think it is, but I'm just trying to check that out, because that way we won't have to switch, or maybe we do. I don't know. But I know we got for 9 minutes to figure this out before we head into the auction.
So for those of you listening, we were trying to, before we go live, see, because it wasn't giving me the option to go live on my LinkedIn.
So yeah, I just want to make sure, that's all. We don't mean anything by this, guys. We're just trying to figure this out. Just like everything else in life, we're trying to figure this out. So yeah, I love what everybody's chiming in here. Like, absolutely, it takes time. As Peter Clark says, be kind out there. Exactly. Which reminds me, I have to give a shout out to Peter Clark. Peter Clark is an amazing guy. If you don't know who he is, he has Red TV. And he, out of the blue, messaged me the other day and said, "Hey, you're doing a great job." So when I hear things like that, because I don't know about you, Michael, because I know you have a show too, which we didn't mention yet. But when you're out there, you hope to reach one, and sometimes you have no idea, because sometimes people don't even put anything in the comments, and you're like, okay, I hope someone sees this, right? And so it's really encouraging when we hear from y'all and you're saying, giving us positive feedback that you love what we're doing. So thank you. Since Melanie brought up Peter Clark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you never really understand the impact of what you do. And I got a good friend, Melody and Jeff will know who I'm talking about. But a good friend of ours says every act of kindness creates a ripple effect without end. And it's true. You never see the true impact of what you do. And I think that applies for good and bad, right? Like, if you put bad out there, it's going to create this ripple effect, or you can put good. The choice is yours, right? Because if I'm mean to you, now you're in a bad mood and you go on and you're mean to the next person, it creates this chain reaction. Or if I say something nice to you, I can change your whole day around. And then now you're happy. And then you go on and you spread joy to the next person. And now you're just spreading that joy. So what you do and what you say matters. Right. It's sad when you go to the grocery store, and on that note, like, you go to a grocery store and I'll be like, "Hey, how's your day going?" And when they look at you and they smile and they say, "You're the first person to ask me how my day's going." And I'll be like, "Well, how long have you been there?" Exactly, Dave. And they'd be like, "Well, I'm 6 hours into my workday." And I'm like, "And nobody's asked you how your day's going?" Like, that's sad, like, just, we've lost that human connection. So being able to have that human connection and just put kindness out there. And two, that ties into, it's Suicide Prevention Month. So yes, that ties in there, just being aware, right? And even something as little as that, just saying, "Hey, how's your day going?" Or, "Hey, I like your hat. I like your shirt. You have a nice smile. Keep smiling," or, whatever it may be. Something little can make somebody's day. It can change the entire trajectory. Words are hard. Trajectory of their day.
Exactly. And like, we're giving each other grace, because we both have had a hard day. We both came on here and like, "Oh, dude, this is a great night for us to go 5.5 hours live." I'm like, I hear you. I'm eating. all over, and Michael's got a bad back, so we're two handicapped making one person here tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we'll make it through. We'll be all right.
We'll make it through because we're overcomers, so of course we're gonna make it through. With that, I want to share that one video where that testimony video. We'll share it later on too, but I want to share it right now so people understand what it is, like how lives are changed when they come back from one of your retreats. So I'm just going to share that right now.
Part of the reason I ended up going was because my community just was pretty much non-existent. This last year has been pretty rough, and I needed to get together with the guys, and being out there was kind of a reminder to slow down and don't rush to get to the final result, because life happens, and to just enjoy the journey. And that's really kind of helped me refocus my life after coming back from the trip. It's like 100% I'm going to come out and meet some guys from the local area. It was great. You put on a great event, and it was super relaxing, super enjoyable, and probably at least the highlight of my year so far. And thank you for doing that. Your organization's awesome. I grew up in Central Illinois. I actually grew up with 2 horses, and so it's been a long time since I got to spend some time with horses. And to go out on this retreat and not expect anything, and then get the chance to go ride for a couple hours, I mean, that was awesome. 100% the highlight of the weekend. I had been out for over 6 years, and I had not been contacted by anyone until I've been to your retreat. And I think a lot of veterans just kind of feel isolated and alone. Once they get out, you kind of miss that brotherhood. There's not a good way to connect with guys in your local area. And so, I would say it's extremely important. The more we have opportunities to get out and connect with each other, that's what's going to help save the lives.
I love that. What a great testimony to, what Second Chance Rehabilitation Ranch does. And so I love that. And just think how many more people you have impacted and are going to impact.
And just to clarify, that was not scripted. It is edited, because the full testimonial was much longer and needed to shorten it down. But it is not scripted. I've been asked that. They're like, "How much did you pay him for that?" Nothing. But that's just one testimonial from what we've done. And when the biggest feed, I think I was telling you this earlier. I was like, when the biggest negative feedback was, we need more snacks. Like, I'll take that as a compliment. But just the camaraderie and bringing people together is amazing. Hey, good to see you. I'll send you your check later. No, I'm just kidding.
That is so great. I'm glad that he's here to see that. That's awesome. So
I told him, I was like, I'm going to make you famous because I've seen your testimonial.
Well, and like you said, everybody deserves a second chance, and so that's what we're here for tonight. So, guys, we're going to switch gears. We are going to come back in just 2 minutes here. We're going to come back on Michael's LinkedIn, but we'll have my Facebook and YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, stay where you're at. He says he can pay rent now. We're going to come back. We're going to join the second half of this. So this was just sharing Michael's testimony, but we're going to come back, and we are now going to switch off to the fundraiser and the auction. So come back. If you're on my Facebook, we'll be back on my Facebook, but we'll be on Michael's LinkedIn and my YouTube channel. So come on back. Give us 2 minutes, and there is some amazing stuff up for grabs. Should we share a little bit of what we're auctioning off?
Yeah.
All right. Let's. I'm going to give you a teaser, guys, because we have some stuff. We have some autographed memorabilia from the Cardinals. We have some amazing artwork from Michael. He has done some amazing leather artwork. Those are absolutely stunning. We have Jen Sahari with Strongholds Foundation Coaching and Consulting. She's going to give 5 1-hour coaching calls to 5 different veterans. We have some books coming up when the day comes, as well as a copy of Coordinating the Chaos from Dr. Christie, and of course, my book, The Overcomer, as well as we have some drops here that I guess is a great way not only to lose weight, but to get gut health back in check, as well as a 1-month consultation. We also have a 3-month gym membership, which come back for more details on that, guys.
Yeah,
and
that's
the main
that's
event,
a fitness wellness plan. Shay's gonna come on. He'll break it all down for you.
that's right.
But it's an online consultation. You don't have to be in person for it.
Right. And a 5-night stay in Hawaii. More details on all of this, guys. Come join us. We're going to get off here. Remember, be unstoppable in all that you do. Come back and join us. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Bye for now.